Hi, and thank you for clicking on this video. I'd like to preface this ramble by saying that I am a big fan of the mini-series of Mega Man, and this video touches on several unresolved plot points, as well as my opinion on where they should take the plot from there. I've done my best to make this video easy to follow and understand, but if some bits of this feel disjointed or don't flow too well, I apologize in advance. I should also mention that I haven't checked if anyone has already made this sort of video, so if it seems at any point like I'm parroting someone else, that is entirely unintentional. This video is built only on my own experience with the series. Also, as this is a sort of discussion video, it's worth mentioning that this video spoils the endings of Mega Man X8, ZX Advent, and I guess the second Legends game, as well as touching upon the ending of Zero 4 and discussing important plot details that were revealed in Zero 2 and 3. If you don't already know that sort of information and don't want to be spoiled, this may not be the video for you, and now is your chance to turn back. This is your only warning. Anyway, on with the video. This ramble is objectively pointless. I'm just a big fan of all things Mega Man, and I'm eager to see what happens next on all fronts. And X9, ZX3, and Legends 3 would all be ideal, as each of their respective series has some unresolved plot points. To begin with, the X series ended on quite a cliffhanger, with X8. Editor's note: I don't know if Mega Man X Command Mission is canon, but seeing as it was a spin-off and isn't included or even mentioned in the X Legacy Collection, not to mention the fact that it supposedly takes place at the same time as the Zero games, what the fuck, I assume it is non-canon and will not be bringing it up from this point on. Anyway, X8 sees the rise of a new generation of Reploids that all have Sigma's data embedded in their copy chips, and they can willingly activate it to go Maverick at any time. At the end of X8, we fight Sigma, who appears to be finally at the end of his rope. He's just the physical embodiment of the virus and barely holding together some scrap. Lumine even seems to confirm this, as Sigma's death was part of his plan, so Sigma's likely well and truly dead now. But because his data exists in the new-gen Reploids, his Maverick ideals still live on. After Lumine's defeat, he attacks Axel with some sort of tentacle, shattering the crystal in his forehead. Lumine is finished off, but Axel's unconscious, and the new-gen Reploids continue to pose a threat as a sort of ticking time bomb. What happens to Axel after that? Do the new-gen Reploids form an army of Mavericks? We don't know. I feel as though I should point out that X8 was released in North America on December 7th, 2004. It has been 19 years, and we still don't have a sequel. In particular, I'd love to see a game or two in between the X and Zero series that let us experience the Elf Wars as they were described to us in the Zero games. A destructive conflict at the end of the Maverick Wars far bloodier than anything that came before, wiping out 90% of all Reploids and 60% of all humans. I expect that we would get to see X and Zero and maybe Axel team up against Dr. Vile, as he's already taken control of the Mother Elf and made her into the Dark Elf, not to mention having taken Zero's original body and converted it into Omega. I imagine that we'd fight our way through the game's roster of bosses and defeat Omega and Vile, banishing Omega to outer space and Vile to the Wastelands in repentance. Zero would seal himself away until he's revived in the first Zero game, and X would sacrifice his physical body to seal away the Dark Elf. As for Axel, I'm not really sure. Model A from ZX Advent bears a striking resemblance to Axel, but it's been said that Master Albert created Model A himself, and that they're an entirely separate entity, so I don't know. But I would love so much to play through a game with all that plot that we've only so far read about and never actually seen. I'd settle for a true X9 for now, though, a plain sequel to X8. That game seemed to be leading to its own conflict, featuring an army of the new-gen Reploids. It could also directly answer the question of what happened to Axel after Lumine knocked him unconscious. That's about all I have to say about a new X game, though. Now I'd like to talk about the ZX Advent cliffhanger, which might have been resolved already, at least in the lore. ZX Advent features a group of 3 wise men who seem to essentially make up the government known as the Sage Trinity. One of the Trinity, Master Albert, planned to assemble all the pieces of Model W, which were basically bits of the Ragnarok orbital weapon infused with remnants of Dr. Vile, after he had fused with it in the climax of Zero 4. With Model W assembled, Albert awakens a weapon called Ouroboros, and with it plans to reset the world and rule over it as a god. He's defeated by the protagonist and the main characters of the first ZX game and Advent part ways, but Master Thomas of the Sage Trinity seems to agree with Albert that the world needs to be reset, and the 4 chosen ones come to his side as he says this to Mikhail. What happens after this point is unknown. However, it can be inferred that Master Thomas succeeded in this world reset, as I've heard that the Mega Man Legends canon basically starts with the world being reset. Still, I think it would be awesome if we got a ZX3, letting us fight against Master Thomas and the Four Chosen Ones, but get a tragic ending as Thomas succeeds in his goal. It would be awesome for a Mega Man game to have such a dramatic ending. If they don't want to make a game with only a bad ending, they could make a good ending for the player to find or earn as well, which would lead into an alternate story that lets the ZX world continue, instead of leading into the Legends series. And even if Thomas succeeding is the only ending, it's not all doom and gloom, because the Legends series shows that even with the world being reset, life goes on. Speaking of the Legends series, I don't have any means of getting footage of Legends right now, but I wanted to bring it up in this video because Legends 2 also apparently ends on a cliffhanger, with the main character Volnut being stuck on the moon. I'm aware that at one point they were working on a Legends 3, but that game has since been cancelled. I've only played the first Legends game, so I don't have too much to say here, but I'm all for a Legends 3 just the same. I'd love to see more Mega Man. Any of these games, an X9, a CX3, a Legends 3, I would love to see, and I really feel like we should have seen all of these by now. The two hardest parts in any of this should be A, the level design, and B, the character design for the new set of bosses and enemies and any new plot-important characters that may be necessary for these games. I don't really see any reason for these games not existing besides potentially shitty or maybe even non-existent management. I understand that at some point, I think in the early 2000s, there was a Mega Man overload. Capcom was just pumping out game after game, and with said games not receiving enough development time, on top of it feeling like too much of the same thing again and again, they just stopped selling quite as well. But this isn't because nobody wants any more Mega Man games. I think with Mega Man 11, X-Dive, and especially the prevalence and success of the Legacy collections, we've more than proven to Capcom that we'd gladly buy Mega Man. We still love it, and we want to see more. We want to see what happens next. We've all gotten caught up on the story with each series thanks to all the Legacy collections, with the exception of a Star Force collection and a Legends collection, more on the prospect of a Legends collection at the moment, and we're ready to see where the story can go from here. Now it sure as hell isn't a question of plot at this point, because as I've already told you, these next few games have practically written themselves. We just need the management to allow these projects to exist, and the stage designers and character designers, and the rest will pretty much sort itself out, right? Am I missing something here? It shouldn't be taking this long for a new entry. Also, I just mentioned we haven't had a Legends collection yet. On the one hand, I would welcome such a thing since the games are alright, and I'd love for Legends 3 to see the light of day, even if it isn't quite the same as it was at the start of its development. But on the other hand, is a Legends collection really necessary? Really? I mean, no offense to Legends fans, but it's only 2 games. I'd appreciate a Legends collection more if it had Legends 3 released with it, or maybe whatever they had finished of the prototype or something. A Mega Man Extras collection would be cool too. There are plenty of games that could have released along with each of these collections, but haven't simply because they're not part of the numbered games, and I guess therefore aren't considered canon, I don't know. Mega Man Powered Up, Mega Man in Base, Maverick Hunter X, X Command Mission, Mega Man The Wily Wars, the 5 Mega Man Game Boy games. Like I said earlier, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before we get a Star Force collection and maybe a Legends collection, but the games I just named have seen very few re-releases, and some haven't been re-released at all, and they all really do deserve to see the light of day again. That said, I think I've talked about this long enough. What do you guys think about all this? Do you agree with my thoughts on where the franchise should go, or do you have your own takes? I'd genuinely love to know, so please leave a comment. I'd appreciate a subscribe too. But anyway, thanks for watching.
で、目が覚めるのはいつ頃になる？